Okay, talking about some tough times. Let's get into a more positive topic, which is the dark horse in each UFC weight class. So this is a constant point of conversation, I'd say, in the community. Who in the top 15 is the biggest threat to the champion, right? And I figured on today's piece of programming, I'd give just a little bit of a thought on all the weight classes inside the UFC at the moment. So let's start at the smallest. UFC flyweight champ Alexandre Pantoja. The cannibal is tremendous, right? He's lapped the division in many ways. But I think if I were to cite one 125er as the biggest threat, it could be his upcoming matchup with Joshua Van. I think that Josh Van might not have the grappling acumen, right, to withstand Pantoja, but the volume that Josh throws, the forward pressure, the aggression, is something that's gotten to Pantoja in the past, right? He is hittable. He sometimes, I would almost say, rests on the laurels of his durability, tires out his opponent, and then wants to take over. Against the guy in Josh Van, who I think has pretty deceptively good cardio, that's not going to happen. The question is, can Josh evade the grappling, have some anti-grappling tools and tricks? That remains to be seen, but I think the dark horse is the man he will be facing next. All right, for Merab Dvalishvili, who is the individual in the 135-pound weight class that can take out the champion? It's hard because I don't think it's going to be Corey Sandhagen. I love the Sandman a ton, but his performance against Umar Nurmagomedov leans to me that he just won't be able to get it done against Merab. The offensive grappling from Merab will at some point get Corey down and then repeatedly plant him onto the canvas. So I think who could be a great foil for the champ and unravel him is a guy in Mario Bautista. Now, listen. I get that there is going to be criticism, but I think Mario Bautista has such a strong grappling base, has really come leaps and bounds in the grappling, and is able to put fights where he wants them. He dictates the pace. He dictates where the fight's playing out. He's done that so effectively in his last couple of outings. Against a guy like Merab, that's a crucial key. You need to be able to be in the driver's seat. You can't let Merab get in control. And I think Mario Bautista could present some problems in the event that he makes it down the line. Okay, let's take it to the featherweight division. Alexander Volkanovski, his biggest threat at this age, right? Quite advanced for a champion in the lower weight classes. It'd be easy to say Lerone Murphy. It would be so easy to say that his next title challenger would be his, biggest problem. But I don't know. I think maybe a guy like Yusuf Zalal could have just a bit more of an edge because of that length, the height. This renewed version of Yusuf Zalal is dangerous, and he's just burning through people. So I think Lerone Murphy, right, fantastic fighter, wouldn't be the most shocking thing if he beats Volk. But let's say Volk gets by him. I think the next big test is going to be Zalal. All right, in the lightweight division, Ilia Topuria, currently the champion. I think it's easy to say Islam Makhachev, right? That's the biggest threat to the current title holder. He's already beaten Max Holloway, already beaten Charles Oliveira. Can't imagine Gaethje or Hooker would present many problems. Paddy Pimblett's interesting in that he has such a big frame for that weight class, and Ilia coming up from featherweight. Paddy literally trimming himself down to 155. I'd like to see it play out, but at the same time, I don't think Paddy would withstand the power of Topuria. So yeah, Islam Makhachev. All right, in the 170-pound division, Jack Della Maddalena, who gives him the biggest test, the biggest threat? Man, I kind of am torn between a few people. I think Michael Morales is such a weapon at 170 pounds, such length, great power. But I don't know. I'm gonna swing on Ian Machado Gary. I think that Ian Gary is evolving in front of our eyes, adding so many different wrinkles to the game. And yes, he did come up short to Shavkat Rakhmonov. Did have some tricky territory in the fading moments against Carlos Prates, but I just think that Ian Gary's stand-up versus Jack Della's boxing would win that stylistic exchange. So for 170, We're going to roll with Ian Machado, Gary. In the middleweight division, Hamzat Chimaev, who gives the champion, the Wolf, the biggest issue. It's hard because you've got some really good fighters at middleweight, but the big thing for me is who can nullify the grappling. And I want to swing on Anthony Hernandez. I think Fluffy's submission game is so complete. I think that defensively he's incredibly well rounded, and striking wise, I mean, this kid's just a nonstop Duracell battery bunny inside the striking sequences. So I don't know if the cardio would hold up against Chimaev. I don't know if he could withstand the strength in Boris's grappling. But if I were going to highlight one person, I would go on the number 6 ranked middleweight Anthony Hernandez. All right, 205 Magomed Ankalaev. Who gives him the biggest problem, the most issues? It's a tricky one because Ankalaev has looked really complete for most moments. But I'm going to go with it's tricky. It's tricky. Let's go with Jan Blachowicz. I think if they run it back, if Jan Blachowicz got another crack at Magomed Ankalaev, he would be able to win and make it more decisive. I thought Jan fought that fight perfectly. Thought he had Magomed confused, and I'd love to see Jan take one more crack at the champion. He's still in the top 5, but old man's got some work to do if he wants to get back to the mountaintop. All right, at heavyweight, Tom Aspinall. Who gives him the biggest issue inside the division? Controversial take. Controversial take. Nobody. Nobody gives Tom problems at 265. Not in his current top 15. He's already beaten most of them. I just don't see any issues coming Tom Aspinall's way. All right. Women's strawweight, Zhang Wei Li. I know that she is departing that division, heading up to flyweight, but I don't know, because it's the same thing as a guy in Pantoja, where Zhang has just lapped this division, no issues whatsoever. So I guess maybe Lupi Godinez, right? Because I like Lupi's style, but I just feel like she would have the same experience as all of Zhang Weili's victims. Valentina Shevchenko in the flyweight division. Who gives her the most problems? It's who I just mentioned. Zhang Weili coming up a weight class might be just a tad undersized, but she is such a complete mixed martial artist. And I think that Shevchenko is bit aged, right? A little bit on the older end, and the Grasso fights show that there are big weaknesses for the Bullet at this stage in her career. And I expect Zhang Weili to exploit them. So give me Zhang Weili, the dark horse heading up to flyweight to take out the champion. All right, finally, last but not least, in the women's bantamweight division, Kayla Harrison, who gives the former PFL champion turned UFC champion problems. Difficult to say. Very, very difficult to say, because I look at 135 pounds and I just don't really see anybody that is going to be able to hang on the ground with Kayla Harrison, right? I think it'd be interesting to see an Eileen Perez fight, because Eileen has such strong grappling in her own right, but I don't think that she does anything to the champion Kayla Harrison. So while there are a couple divisions here that I'm expecting washes and dominance and nothing but ease and some title defenses, there are a couple, I would say, more creative selections made for the dark horse in each division. Hope you enjoyed that one.